Have you been keeping up to date with the Canadian truckers protest thing?
Oh yeah, not as much as other people, but most certainly.
The honking will continue until freedom improves.
So yeah, I had this chapter in my book, The New Right, that says meme magic is real, and I'm sure most people listening have seen on social media that in the last year or more, certainly, there's been this meme of Clown World, where people say something that's perfectly ridiculous and they're responded to with a green clown pressing his nose, or there's another meme where it's a lobster claw holding a clown nose saying, "Here, you drop this." So that had been a thing, and now they're literally honking, and there's people on Reddit having meltdowns, saying like, "I can't sleep. This is terrorism."
Yep.
And you're exactly right. The honking will continue. And the thing I've made this point several times, and I'll make it again here, especially with the British audience, that there's a misconception by conservatives, and I mean American conservatives. I don't know about Tory conservatives in the UK, but that in America especially, there's different groups that the progressives latch on to further their agenda. It's Muslim immigrants, it's transgender bathrooms, 1 month or whatever, so on and so forth. And the point I always beat into their heads is they don't really care about these groups. This is just whoever is a useful tool at the moment. And as soon as that group is defiant in any way, they're thrown into the rubbish bin, as you'd say. And the best example of this is, here we have the center left party is the Democrats, obviously. There you guys have the Labor Party. But as soon as Labor starts being defiant, all of a sudden they're Nazis. And it's just a fascinating phenomenon to see. And I think it's just completely transparent how your measure of virtue as an interest group is directly correlated to how useful you are to furthering a certain agenda.
Dude, that's so nailed it. Like it's so transparent.
Just one more thing. Isn't that also what broke down the so-called red wall in the last election, that these districts that had been red is more correctly than here. We have here red is Labour over in the UK. These were Labour districts for, I think, almost a century that went blue.
Yeah, and places like Hartlepool and Blythe that are both near me and where I've grown up, they are Labour strongholds. Pitt Village, my granddaddy was a miner and he hated Thatcher, and my daddy was a miner and he hated Thatcher. That ran on for a long time, and then the left appears to be very much a sort of bourgeois, faux intellectual, this sort of middle class looking down on the underclass and the working class movement at the moment. And you're right, it's whoever's convenient. This is what Bridget said the other day, but she was actually taking the shot from a different angle, talking about people that are on the right who are saying, we care about women's rights because of these trans people that are encroaching on them. She's like, you don't care about fucking women's rights.
Yeah, right, you're correct.
You don't care about them at all.
It most certainly goes both ways, yeah.
It's just a convenient...
But there's a certain irony in calling yourself Labour and then telling people that the unions are Nazis.
What is it in Canada? Have you got any idea
how the Liberals.
Right, okay.
So they have the Liberals, which is the center-left party. They have the Conservatives, which is fairly recent because the progressive Conservatives had imploded in the 90s. And then they have a party to the left, which is... the New Democrats, I think they're called.
Yeah, NDP.
So those are like, what's that? The NDP, yeah. So they're the real hard leftists. There's also the Green Party, of course.
But Trudeau has disappeared like Saddam. Did you see that? He's gone off into...
My understanding was he was on U.S. soil.
Maybe.
Yeah, I said that he should be, if he's on U.S. soil, they should send him to Gitmo.
But let's not forget that he has COVID. So one of the problems that they've got at the moment is that truckers, 90% of whom are vaccinated, aren't agreeing to a vaccine mandate about crossing the border because presumably America is concerned about people with COVID crossing the border. And Trudeau, a man who has COVID, has potentially fled Canada due to security concerns about this truckers' protest into the US.
Well, in his defense, if you've got a convoy full of Nazi truckers, as a black man, he's going to have to kind of do a reverse Underground Railroad. Because they'll see his skin and they'll judge him accordingly.
Yeah, they got accused. Everything happened, right? First off, it was that they were actually everyone seemed to be kind of behind it. You know, it was a peaceful protest, very polite. And then as it picked up speed and you realize that the mainstream media was just going to start throwing every ism and ist that they could.
Well, first they said that they lied. There was the Canadian news outlet or from New Brunswick, I think it was, where they're saying that they're protesting their working conditions. So they just completely lied about what they were protesting. Then a couple of days ago, GoFundMe, as I'm sure people saw, just decided to seize all the money and said, we're going to send it wherever we want. And that was a huge backlash. And they actually refunded instead of seizing it.
Oh, has that happened? Because I thought that they'd seized it and said they were giving it to particular worthy causes.
No, it's been resolved. It's because they have something called, I think the issue was, if I double check me, because this is kind of, you see things on Twitter, it's kind of like Plato's Cave. But my understanding was people were going to call and ask for chargebacks. And when that happens, they're hit for each one with like a $15 fee. But also the public shaming was enormous. And I know some politicians got involved. Like, whoa. You don't get simply to just, I'm contributing to the trucker as well. That's null and void. So this is going to go to, Greenpeace,
whoever the fuck we want. Yeah. There's a quote here. Organizers provided a clear distribution plan for the initial 1 million. This is from GoFundMe's statement that was released earlier this week, and confirmed funds would be used only for participants who travel to Ottawa to participate in a peaceful protest. Given how this situation has evolved, no further funds will be directly distributed to the Freedom Convoy organisers. We will work with organisers to send all remaining funds to credible and established charities verified by GoFundMe. All donors may submit a request for a full refund until February 19th. So they were giving people 2 weeks to get on and order a refund, but it seems now, because of the backlash, that they've just done all of it. Which, I mean, it's strange that somehow feels like a victory, because the anchoring point has been set so low. Oh, at least they didn't steal it and give it to another charity. Well, no, they shut it down and didn't give it to the people it was supposed to go to.
I would disagree. I would say the victory here is that their machinations are made public, because this permanently establishes the brand as ideologically driven. It would be one thing if they had said disingenuously that we're not giving this to the convoy because the convoy is being run by white supremacists and we stand against white supremacists. It would be a brazen lie, but that would be something that would make sense. This is just, they said, well, it's not organized. It's no longer classified by whom as a peaceful protest. It's classified as an insurrection. Therefore, we can't take part in insurrection. Great, send the money back. But I think this is a very healthy a necessary step forward in our cultural bifurcation. And there's what's really funny is there's an enormous movement that's insisting that everyone takes sides. And this has been going on at least since 2015. And the sides are the good guys or the Nazis. And then there's plenty of people who are saying, screw you, I'm not with you. And they don't, but we said, if you don't side with us, you're Nazis. Like, cool story, bro. And therefore, they're forcing people to view things as in-group and out-group. And that's causing the out-group to form alternative mechanisms. And then they're pulling their hair out. It's like, how dare you? You're supposed to be in our group as subordinates. So this isn't something that's going to happen increasingly, and it's something that needs to happen. And the idea that there's one agency, whoever it is, who gets to define, these riots are peaceful and, these truckers are insurrectionists, and it's very clear how the cards are going to fall. I'm shocked to how quickly people have grown wise to how the game is played, because you don't have to have any opinion on Canada or the truckers or really GoFundMe to know how this movie plays out.
Is it not more hatred of the working class again, though? Look at these idiot, uneducated truckers that don't know what's best for them. Don't worry, you should be listening to us, the people who are actually in positions of power, the ones that are educated enough to make decisions about you. It was okay for you to have your little protest for a while, but when it starts to perhaps make genuine change, we are a lot less happy about that. And you think, well, hang on, the working class that you're supposed to represent, they're telling you. Like, they're literally telling you. People aren't deciding to go out into the middle of the Canadian winter, and it looks fucking miserable. It looks so miserable while whatever it is that they're doing. Yeah. And people are setting up pizza ovens and soup kitchens, and they're standing guard around a statue of a one-legged man because it got desecrated a couple of days ago. They're not doing that because they're bored. But that takes an awful lot of effort to go and do something like that. So this is the working class telling you what they feel.
So no, they're not. So the argument is they've all been brainwashed by the forces of evil. Somehow Trump's probably involved. So they don't really recognize them as having agency when they're being defiant. And the issue with defiance is now the entire population, which had been docile and submissive because they were told and reiterated that they have no choice, that we have to make these hard decisions in order to save everyone's lives. Now to have a large group of people say, hold on a minute, there are other ways to go about this. This causes people who prefer safety to liberty enormous psychological distress because everything in their mental makeup is about giving up choice and having options in favor of being told what to do for the sake of security and safety, which has not at all been guaranteed to them whatsoever, but they can act as if it has been.
There's a guy who called into a show that I listened to saying that he hasn't had sleep in nearly 5 days now because of this honking. And that's the other side of it where you go, okay, like that bit does suck. I've been kept awake by loud noises previously when I've been in cities, and it really is quite bad. I don't really know what you're supposed to do about that.
I don't believe him. It's not because of the honking. It's because of his neurosis. So what COVID did very effectively was to allow highly educated urban people, which tend to correlate very well with mental illness such as anxiety and depression and other sorts of neurosis. This gives them an external source to blame for their issues. So instead of, I'm suffering because, of me, I'm suffering because everyone's suffering. So just because there is a cause for something, that does not mean that the response is proportional or a direct result of that cause. I don't believe it's not possible that. Sure, I'll believe him that for 5 nights his sleep was poor, but I have very little sympathy for him.
Yeah,
and the thing is, it's very important. You also remember that in this kind of culture, being a victim is a high status marker. So the more you demonstrate that you personally are suffering as a consequence of bad people, the more virtuous there accordingly you can claim yourself to be.
If you enjoyed that, then press here for the best clips from the podcast over the last few weeks. And don't forget to subscribe. Peace.